Hello everyone, welcome to the course Economic Environment and Business Strategy. Myself Sukumar Velakal, faculty at Department of Economic Sciences, IIT Kanpur. So today is our first session, the introductory session on this course. So let me begin with the course description, the broad objectives of the course. One is to understand the business environment and macroeconomic dynamics within the businesses and the economy. And another objective is to understand how business decisions are made and how the business will succeed in a dynamic environment with competitive strategies. So this course module is spread into 8 weeks. So let me brief you what all will be covered in each week. So in week 1, we'll start with the introduction to economic and business environment. So in this session, we will cover various concepts related to economic and business environment and including internal and external environmental variables and consisting of so many economic, political, legal, environmental, technological and reputational risk. All these aspects will be thoroughly covered in this session. Then on week 2, we will talk about the government intervention in a competitive markets. So what are the rationales behind government intervention in a competitive market and what are the costs associated with it and what are the benefits associated with such government interventions. Then moving to week 3, because to understand the economic and business environment, we need to have a thorough understanding, at least the basic minimum understanding of various macroeconomic concepts and mainly various macroeconomic environment. So in order to understand that, we need to first discuss key macroeconomic variables that have been widely discussed in economic context. It includes GDP, inflation and the relevance to business. Then moving to 4th week, we will talk about financial environment. So in this context, we are going to talk about direct and indirect finance and various financial institutions and banking, insurance, mutual funds, pension funds, and what are their structure and how do they operate. Then we will talk about financial instruments and markets, and it includes bond markets, and also we'll look at why the regulation of financial markets, because financial market is the one of the heavily regulated market across the world. And then we also touch upon credit ratings of firms and governments. Then moving to week 5, here we'll talk more about economic policy environment. Here we will cover basics of monetary and fiscal policy, and also we'll look at India's economic environment with special regard to how these policies are being designed and implemented in Indian context, and accordingly how does India's economic environment respond. Then on week 6, we will talk about the external sectors of the economy. So we can say that is the understanding of an economy. So here the various concepts such as balance of payment, capital and current account, exchange rate determinations, and all these topics will be thoroughly discussed in week 6. In week 7, we'll move to understanding global business environment. So the widely topics like business cycle, what does it mean, and different business cycles happened over time. Then we'll also relate this one with the international trade, and also we look at the CBAM, free trade and WTO negotiations. All these topics will be covered in week 7. In the last week, we'll talk about strategic management. So in the strategic management, we'll discuss various concepts such as environmental scanning, industry analysis, internal scanning, corporate strategy, competitive tactics and strategies, and basic types of strategic alliances. So about the basic textbook that I am using to cover the business environment, I have used Paul Weatherly and Doron Otter, and also I use the textbook Concepts in Strategic Management and Business Policy by Thomas Whelan and team. And in addition, to get some to talk about key macroeconomic variable, I heavily relate these topics from these books, Macroeconomics by Mangue and Taylor. So now coming to broad topic one, is mainly talking about an introduction to business environments. So here the topics that we are going to discuss are includes mainly introduction to business environment. So as I already mentioned in the beginning, that we'll cover concepts, internal and external environmental variables, and subsequently we will discuss various risks in the business environment, including economic, technological, environmental, political, and legal risk. So we will cover these topics one by one. So let me move on now. So the the concept I mentioned here is that the business environment. So first of all, what is meant by business environment? So let's make our conceptual clarity and share conceptual clarity. So business environment means the total sum of the environmental factors that provide an atmosphere to the business. So it includes the aggregate of all conditions, events, influences surrounding and affecting a business. So mostly when we talk about business environment, it comes to our mind that mostly these are external factors. There are so many external factors like political, economic, socio-cultural, technological, legal, and global factors all directly affect business environment. Most of them directly affect, and some of them indirectly affect business environment as well. So then we talk about business environment. Let us also see what is meant by business. So business is the activities of a firm related to trade and services, be it private, be it public or non-commercial. All these are business. So when we talk about a firm, that is a business. Talk about government, that is also part of business. So business is an economic activity. That's the core definition here. So a business organization is an economic unit. So business decision making is essentially an economic process after all. So business means human activities like production, extraction, or purchase or sale of goods performed to earn profit or maximize societal welfare. So maybe when we talk about earn profits, that is mainly about the private entity. Their objective is to maximize profit. And when it comes to societal welfare, that is the main objective for government business. That means their main objective is to maximize societal welfare. So then coming to the second component, that is the environment. It refers to the aspects of surroundings. So a business firm exists within a broader social, economic, political, and cultural context. Any changes in this context influence the operation of a business. So talking about the business environment, since we started with a very basic definition, so a business firm is a dynamic entity because it operates within a context. So one of the contexts is internal environment. So internal environment means within the firm. That means within the firm. It includes man, material, money, machinery, management, usually within the business control. So business can change these factors according to the changes in the functioning of the enterprises, its infrastructure, its physical assets, human resources, organizational structures, technology, and work system. In short, internal environment, these are within the control of that particular entity, that particular firm. So that means if it wants to change, alter any of these, they have the freedom, they have the flexibility. So they can change the managerial expertise, they can change the technical expertise of the firm and everything, including the how much capital they want to influx, inject into their firm, everything they can decide. This is about the internal environment. As I mentioned, this is mainly in the firm's own control. But the external environment, those factors beyond the business enterprise's control are included in the external environments. So it includes the broad economic environment, the environment that we are all living, that the broad economic environment, broad technological environment, natural, physical, and environmental, political, legal factors. All these constitute the external business environment. So about this business environment, particularly for this session, I relayed most of the inputs from this textbook from Weatherly and Otter. So coming to talk about the external environment. So mainly talking about external environment. When we talk about environment, external environment, we also talk simultaneously about the external risk. That means the emerging risk. So it includes external macro environmental factors that can impact operations and decision making. So to understand this one, there is a framework. Shortly we call it PEST framework. PEST means political, economic, social, and technological. And it helps organizations identify and understand various forces and trends, including political factors, political risk. So the political landscape and government actions affecting business. So for example, emerging regulations, changes in political leadership, geopolitical tensions, and other political development. It all could pose risk or opportunities for the firms. So all these political factors is one of the key component of external environmental risk. Then comes economic factors. In the economic factors, the broad economic conditions, including emerging economic trends, including, for example, countries imposing tariff on each other or trade restrictions, and similarly changes in inflation, and about the overall economic conditions, including such as recession or economic boom. That means the slowdown of economy, and currency fluctuations, economic and trade policies, and other factors all could affect industry or market. So these are the economic factors and associated risks. And then comes social factors. Social factors include mainly societal and demographic changes. This all may influence your business. Emerging consumer preferences, cultural shifts, social trends, health, education, lifestyle issues, etc. For example, if I mention that the demographic changes, that the aging society, and when the proportion of elderly in the society increases, what are the likely implications of these on the business? Maybe when people live longer, people will save more. Then that may have an implication on the present consumption, right? So in that way, we need to try to relate these factors into the business conditions. And one of the thing I want to mention in the case of social factors, unlike political factors and economic factors, social factors are slow in change, slow in taking place. Unlike political factors, you know that there is a sudden change in leadership and political leadership, then accordingly their policy will be changing. And similarly, economic factors, there can be suddenly economic downturn, there will be economic slowdown, right? So this all can be sudden or unexpected. But social factors, societal and demographic changes, the cultural factors, all this will take time, but firms must be aware of that all these things are going to change over time. So then comes technological factors, that the technological advancements and innovations are impacting virtually every industry. So focus on emerging technologies, automation, data security threats, and other tech related risks and opportunities are emerging, and firms need to take all these factors into account. So in short, firms should be well aware of the technological changes, and they need to be part of the technological development, technological changes, and adapt to the new technology. Then they get an edge in the market. Otherwise, they will lag behind. So in addition to this PEST framework, there are legal factors as well. To some extent, sometimes this will be covered in the political arena. However, these legal factors can be taken out as a separate factors. This is in addition to the PEST framework. So the legal and regulatory environment will likely impact your business. Emerging laws, regulations, compliance requirements, legal challenges all could affect business operations. In addition, a few more are there that is called environmental factors. For example, environmental factors and sustainability issues nationally and globally. You know that these days the climate change, that is a burning topic. So if there, because of that, there will be environmental regulations, there will be climate change impacts, there will be resource scarcity and other environmental risks. And when it comes to the climate change, you know that there is carbon regulations are there, and the firms have to adhere to various carbon regulation policies. So all these are having implications on businesses. So let me now show you whatever the point that we discussed using a figure. So you can see in this figure, these are the broad. First I can show the layer by layer. The first external layer, super external layers, you can say, for example, here natural, physical environment, physical resources here, climate here, wildlife. So these are all very broad environment. These are not at all in our control, not in the control of even the firms or even under the control of the governments. So these are the very broad super external environment. Then comes the external environment. In these are the external environment. You can see that societal environment, economic forces, technological forces, political legal forces, socio-cultural forces. So all these come as external environment. Then the next layer is the environment, but they are not very internal environment. It comes somewhere between external and internal. To some extent we can say these are external environment, but these are mostly related to the environment in that particular industry, not related to one particular firm. Suppose when we talk about a firm means one production unit, one production entity, and industry means all that particular homogeneous production units working, that as a industry. For example, mobile phone, one particular mobile firm, maybe Sony, Samsung, Oppo. You can see that these are the firms. When you talk about industry as a whole, that smartphone, all these firms together constitute an industry. That one comes here, that one this year. Then related to this industry, what are the factors affecting? Government's role, special interest group, customers, creditors, communities, trade association, competitors, employees, suppliers, shareholders. These are all related to that particular industry. Then comes the internal part. This is the inner layer. This mainly belong to that each and every specific firm. So that means internal environment. So that's within the control of that particular business, that particular firm. It depends on their own structure, culture, resources, etc. So as I mentioned earlier, firms have almost full control over internal environment, but they don't have control over the task environment or external environment or the broad external environment. So in short, what we are saying that this internal environment firms are having more control. So they can assess the risk, and even the external risk they can assess, and accordingly they can make some strategic change within the firm to manage this risk. So when we go ahead with discussing different types of risk and the environment, so some of the key themes that you can look at and see that whether you can relate these themes with the business and the environment in which it operates. So there are different themes. Let me go one by one. One is called diversity. Diversity means because business is a diverse category. So there will be private sector, public sector, voluntary, that the third NGO, non-government sector organizations. So we need to see what kind of business that we are talking about. So diversity is one of the component. Then there is internal and external. By now you are already familiar that the business environment is both inside and outside organization. So you know that the external environment is more uncertain and risky, and these are more dominant. So in our discussion in this course, most of our discussion will be focused on external environment, because these are the firms, because these are the business environment. So we'll be talking mostly in terms of external business environment. Then at the end of the course, we'll see how firms devise strategies to address the various external environment. Most of them are very uncertain, as I already mentioned here, uncertain, risky, and firms develop strategies to predict and respond accordingly to this external environment. Then complexity is there, that the external environment is multi-dimensional, more complex and interrelational. For example, economic environment and political environment, these are highly correlated. So you need to see that this is not standalone. Each and every environmental factors, they are not standalone. They all depend. They are multi-dimensional, more complex, they are highly interrelated. Then local to global. So business environment can be analyzed at various spatial levels or scales. Maybe we can start thinking about in a small local area, then about the state level, national level, and then some region wise, Asia, Europe, America, etc. In that way we can think of, and we can also see the globally about some of the issues that are going to affect your business. That also we can discuss. And then they are dynamic. Environment of business is uncertain and changes over time, even within reasonably short periods. So then there are two-way interaction between business organizations and their environments. So clearly the main point here is that businesses influence the environment, and the environment also influence the businesses. So that means there's a two-way interaction. So maybe the discussion we started here saying that there are environmental factors, external environment is there, and businesses work in that environment. It's not like that. It's actually a two-way interaction. That means businesses, they influence the environment. Maybe businesses influence the economic environment, political environment, legal environment, and similarly all these environment also influence the businesses. So it's a two-way interactions. And then there are several stakeholders that also we need to have an eye, individual and groups that are affected by business decisions and vice versa. And then also includes values. Business decisions involve ethical questions, competing perspectives, and values concerning the nature and purpose of business in society, relating to its power, responsibilities, performance, and ethics, including climate implications, or even when you produce goods and services, what are the private costs associated with it, and what are the social costs associated with this production. So for example, when they're producing goods and services, for example, then they think about their private costs, what are the costs included, but at the same time, we also need to think about the societal cost, the pollution, for example, that they are injecting in the society. So the pollution that they are generating, that also we need to take into account. So far about the topics, mostly about the topics, the business environment, we so far categorize that these consist of external environment and internal environment. So within the external environment, the most dominant environment is economic environment. Whenever we talk about business environment, we spend considerable amount of time in discussing and understanding economic environment, because these are very dynamic and each and every firm is subject to the economic environment risk. And in deep, let us go in discussing the economic environment. So economic environment includes mainly the nature and direction of an economy in which a firm must operate and compete. So in general, firms seek to compete in a relatively stable economy with a strong growth potential. So the major economic components of the economic environment includes, the first one is economic system. Economic system means whether are we living in a capitalist economic system like US, Canada, UK, Germany, or a socialist economic system like Russia and some Latin American countries, Cuba, or in a mixed economic system like India. Then comes, we need to understand various economic policies, including fiscal policies, monetary policies, industrial and foreign trade policies. Then comes about the economic status, the general trend of macroeconomic variables like gross domestic product, business cycle, investment, saving, consumption, inflation, employment, the balance of payment, income distribution, along with regional and international economic integration. So, talking about the economic environment, one of the fundamental principles in economic environment is the scarcity. Scarcity is the heart of economic environment. So, you know that the resources are limited. Resources are limited, be it land, capital, and other resources. You may see that there are plenty of resources, but all these are relative and there is scarcity. All these are relatively, all these are scarcity. And the issue is that the same resources, the natural resources, land, labor, capital, and all, this is not only scarce, the same resource can be used for multiple purposes. So there are alternative uses. So when you are using resource for one particular purpose, you are actually foregoing another use of the same resources. That we say that the foregone production. Suppose when you are using resources to produce one particular good or services, then in that process you are foregoing something else, some other goods and services. So the resources that we are using in the defense, when you are using all our resources in defense, you know that there is an opportunity cost. We are foregoing the production of education, health, and other social sector production of goods and services. So this is called opportunity cost, that is the next best foregone due to the production of one particular, the use of resources. When we talk about economic environment, there are broadly two types are there. One is called free market economy, and other one is called regulation, under government control. So example, wage determination and the law of minimum wage. Wage determination normally is determined by the free market, but when the government come in, regulate, then they come up with a law of minimum wage. So in the market, what makes for an efficient economic environment? So in the free market economy, the production problem, the three main production problems such as what to produce, for whom to produce, how to produce, all are determined by market in the case of capitalist economy. But in the case of a socialist economy, all these questions, all these problems are answered by government. What to produce, for whom to produce, and how to produce. All these are answered by government there. So then broadly, the economic system, we can classify it into four primary schools of economic thought. One is called neoclassical or neoliberal view, that is mainly based on free market. Most of the Western economies are based on neoclassical, neoliberal view. Then we have institutionalist or structuralist view. They argue for government intervention in the market capitalism. Then we have a socialist or Marxist view. That means they believe in full government control, full state control of all means of production, and they believe in public ownership. And then we have the last one, that is a recent entry, is called green or environmentalist view. So they argue that economic growth, it should be green economic growth. That means it should be with a minimum in the production of goods and services. We should make minimum harm. We shouldn't harm the environment. We should protect the harm. We should minimize the harm to the environment as much as possible. So coming to the neoclassical or neoliberal view, which I already mentioned, these most Western economies, they believe in neoclassical or neoliberal view. So in their case, most of them, these economies undergone transition from primitive communism. So primitive communism means long back, there was no private ownership of resources, land, capital, everything was in a, there is no private ownership. So everyone, people, the olden days, people use all this resource collectively. Then these economies, they gradually move to feudalism. Feudalism means land is the main means of production, main resources. So that is owned by the feudalists. Then over a period of time, feudalism gave way for capitalism. So capitalism, currently most private Western economies are under capitalist regime. So they believe in private ownership of the means of productions, and their objective is profit motive, and they believe in efficiency in the production of goods and services. Then Coming to the free market economy, that we are going to discuss in the next session. So in the next session, we are going to see how does market system works. So in that context, I am going to discuss various market mechanisms. So there we are going to talk about demand and supply, and what is meant by demand, what is meant by supply, and by using this framework, we are going to discuss how prices are determined. Then using the same framework, we are going to see how government intervention takes place there, and what are the pros and cons of government intervention in this free market economy using the demand and supply analysis. And see you in the next session. Thank you.